Welcome in, good morning, and welcome to Let's Bet It here on Pickswise, Pickswise.com, and our Pickswise YouTube channel. I'm Mark Zeno, joined by Jared Smith as we hit the final day of August, and we are turning the calendar to September, getting ready for football. Andrew Cooper, lead NFL analyst for Fantasy Alarm, will join us on the show, so there's a lot of football to get into, but of course, we'll have the baseball as well and our plays of the day. Make sure you guys subscribe to the Pickswise YouTube channel. Download the Pickswise app on the Apple Store or on Google Play. Welcome in my partner in crime here for the day, Jared Smith. Jared, happy almost September, and we are right there, brother, right on the precipice of football.
Is it me, or does August go by faster than any other month of the entire calendar? Maybe because I moved and it's like been a crazy whirlwind month, but it feels like August just started. And also, I'm in the home stretch of tracking all 2,400 Major League Baseball games like a true idiot, like a true asshole. But I'm excited for baseball to end and for football to start.
No, certainly am. And again, we will get into some NFL here and some futures props as well. But let's start with our Major League Baseball segment, Bettor Up. And, interesting question, because I posed this last night, and I thought it was worth at least a little minor debate here about Aaron Judge, who hit his 51st home run last night. He now needs 11 home runs to break Roger Maris's 61, which many people still feel is the non-steroid home run record. That said, different conversation. There are odds up there for Aaron Judge to get to 62. His home run total right now on FanDuel was listed at 61.5. And going over it was plus money at 185. He is on pace to hit 64 home runs on the year. Jared, this feels like a very good bet to make at plus 185. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, again, plus 185 implying like 35 to 40% implied odds there. So, yeah, I think in more than a coins flip, I mean, he's hit a home run in like 4 out of the last 7 games. He's heating up. So he went through a little bit of a dip in August, and now he's kind of heating back up. And I think playing in California certainly helps this week. Yeah, I wouldn't like run to the window for this, but I wouldn't bet against Aaron Judge getting to this mark, because this mark does feel big. It feels like a big moment because it's a Yankee and it's Maris and it's got the prestige and the pomp and circumstance. So yeah, if there was a side to bet here, I definitely would err on the over and take the plus money.
I mean, let's just do the simple math, as you said. They have 32 games left. Yes. We're on the final day of August. So he's got to hit one home run basically every 3 games.
And that's about what his pace has been this year. 42 out of 126, right at 33%. So
he has 1 2-homer day, and it really is going to push that number in a different scenario. And here's the thing: you wonder how much he starts to feel any of the pressure. Again, this isn't the home run record,
I'm sure,
but I would tell you that for the Yankees, this is a huge deal, right? To 100%. Break Roger Maris for the Yankees, they will wearing pinstripes and being a Yankee his entire career. This is a big thing for him. And
they might retire his number just based off of this one record. Yeah. Like, I mean, they very well might.
They tend to retire numbers. It happens often. Nonetheless, I think I would do it right now. Run to the window, no, but I would walk briskly
Yeah.
And put a couple of shekels down on this, as you like to say. I think you're going to get a great return. I think he gets there. I genuinely do. It might be the last day of the season where he's got to hit.
He's probably
He's
going to
sitting on
face some pretty
61, trying to
bad
hit
pitchers
62.
down the stretch too,
Yeah,
right? I
you
mean,
would
like
think, and
usually in
that's the other.
September it's the call ups, so I haven't looked at their schedule, but if they have any bottom feeders on their schedule, odds are he's going to face some pretty bad pitchers in September too. I
Well,
agree. I do think he gets there. I do
the
agree.
other part of this, Jared, is that if the Yankees were still leading by 13 games in the
Yeah.
American League, and if the Yankees didn't fall behind Houston or 4 games behind them for the
Yes.
top seed in the American League, you might see Judge get some days off. Then you
Agreed.
might get a Sunday off and a Monday off just to keep him fresh for the postseason. I don't know that you'll see that. That's the other part of this.
No.
Is he going to play
They
all
need
32
that now.
games?
Like honestly, they need that
Yeah,
home
he's the
field
only guy
edge
hitting.
against Houston.
He's the only guy
Yeah.
hitting in the
I agree.
lineup. So, and I'll add one more thing on this before we get to is the trend your friend. If he doesn't win the MVP, it is the most egregious, most disgusting voting error of my lifetime in professional sports. Like there's
Even
just
more than
still not an
Derek
argument in
Jeter
my
not
mind.
being a unanimous
Unanimous,
Hall of
yeah. Well,
Famer.
that's that. Yeah,
Well,
you're
I'll
hitting
say
on two
this
of them.
about
I
the
have to hit close to
MVP.
home.
It does seem like based on what the odds are telling me, and Vegas is usually pretty good about getting these right. When they're giving you minus 500 at this stage of the season, and they're letting you bet Shohei Ohtani at 10-1, they don't get had very often, right? Those casinos are
Right.
bright and shiny for a reason. They're not going to give you Shohei at 10-1 in September if they think he has a legitimate chance to win, really. So I
I still
think
don't know how
barring
in
an
July
injury,
Shohei had a legitimate chance to win, but that's just me.
yeah, I think that's when it turned. I can look at the odds definitely turned like June, July really is when it really separated itself. But
Yeah.
usually, if it's that big of a gap between the first guy on the board and everyone else, Vegas doesn't get this stuff wrong very often. And I feel like Judge is going to be the MVP.
All right, let's get to some trends here. Is the trend your friend? A couple of quick ones here, Jared. Blue Jays 5-0 straight up in the last 5 home games against the Chicago Cubs. Trend your friend here or no?
Yeah, you listen. Toronto needs wins desperately.
Mm-hmm.
Desperately needs wins. I'm seeing TBD for the Cubs today against Mitch White, who's been kind of since coming over from LA in that trade.
Right.
I'm not gonna go nuts here because you're probably laying $2 on Toronto. The line's not out yet because we don't have a starter for Chicago, but I'm assuming once the line comes out, you'll be laying $2 at least on Toronto. And you know how I feel about those big favorites this year of $2-3 or more. They just haven't been profitable. So I think I would lay off betting this, but I'd be surprised if Toronto lost this game. Let's just leave it at that.
Sure. Again, he is always a shake no matter what. He doesn't have a good track record. Orioles 2-8 to the over in there, or 8-2 to the under. 2-8 to the over in their last 10 as underdogs.
Yeah, so we talked about this game before the show. I am liking the guards today. It's under $2. It's Jordan Lyles on the mound. And I think McKenzie's been solid because it's Jordan Lyles on the mound. I don't feel great about betting an under. He's been a gas can this year, but the Guardians offense hasn't been explosive. And yeah, I would say McKenzie's really solid. So as long as you get a halfway decent outing from Lyles, the Orioles bullpen has been good. Neither offense really is that exciting. I would friend this trend. I would go under in this game.
Yeah, interesting. Orioles have certainly been very much a better fan favorite team this year. They absolutely have made people a good amount of money
exactly.
if you were on the right trend here. All right, let's get to the rest of our baseball picks. You have 3 different Nerfies you're eyeing up. I put the same Nerfie you did on the board just because the price was so exorbitant. It's one of those where when it gets this high, I almost don't get scared. Like the Mets-Dodgers Nerfie is one of those ones where you knew it was going to be incredibly juiced. Now, when you see juice in the 140, 150 range, I don't like to sit there. But when I get like 170, up there where I'm seeing on FanDuel, it's like, yeah, okay. I actually don't mind leaning into those spots.
Oh wow. I mean, I always want a better price, even if
Right.
the odds indicating that the bet is going to hit. Obviously, at a place like FanDuel, which has been, I'll be honest, of the books, and again, I look at these numbers every freaking morning because I'm a nut job. FanDuel does have sharper nerfy odds. Like I noticed I don't bet a lot at FanDuel because they tend to be pretty fair. The discrepancies to me take place at MGM. That's where I find really good nerfy odds usually. And then here in town, South Point and Westgate are very fair. In fact, you can get this nerfy at minus 140 over at South Point right now. Tyler Anderson's been great. And listen, I don't need to say anything about Jacob deGrom. I mean, that part of the nerfy I feel very confident in. It's Tyler Anderson going up against this Mets lineup, which is very good at home. Highest home scoring rate in the league, 46.8%. But against lefties over the last month, they're a bottom 10 team in batting average and WRC plus. So Tyler Anderson, you would think, could neutralize an inning at least. And the one thing I like about these games now that we're getting into September, this game feels like I had friends that attended it last night at Citi Field, and they said it felt like a playoff game. And this kind of series does feel like an NLCS kind of preview. So I like that intensity when it's the first inning. It feels like the starting pitchers give you a little bit of extra juice than they would a random game in June against the bottom feeder team. So I think minus 140 is a fair price here based off of the hit rates of the pitchers and the vibe, which is what we should expect in Queens tonight.
Yeah. Again, I'm with you. I think that this, much like last night, started out a low-scoring game. Runs came late. I think you'll see the same sort of thing as both these managers, much similar to when the Braves and the Mets played. They're sort of tiptoeing through the game here, not wanting to make the first mistake and hoping that they're on the right side of it when it all comes out and it's all said and done. All right, you have two more nerfies that you're looking at. Hit me up.
Yeah, so I'll save one for play of the day. Listen, by the way, so yesterday I gave out 3 nerfies on my own. I tailed a Yerfy nerfy from the site, and I tailed LJ's and Paul Sporer from Fangraphs Royals moneyline pick. So I made 7 bets yesterday. I won 6 of them, and then the one loss was the play of the day. You can't make that up. So
I got burnt on Monday on Carlos Rodon. So what do you want to do? It happens.
I'm like the worst. I'm a great handicapper. I'm a terrible play of the day picker. That I guess that's just, you just got to own your strengths and weaknesses in life, right? So keep that in mind when you're betting these. Of all the plays that I give out, make sure you bet the same on every one, because there really is no difference in my mind between what separates a play from not a play. So I'll give you the non-play of the day one first, and then I have one other money line that I like today. So I'll give you Cards, Reds, nerfy. This one actually is a really good price, plus 115 over at MGM. And Jose Quintana, on paper, in your mind, you're like, oh, he's old, he's washed up. He's had an incredible season, nerfy-wise, 20-5 with an under 200 batting average and a whip of under 1. Mike Minor's ERA is like through the roof, but for some reason this guy's 13-2 to the nerfy this year. I can't explain that. Now the Cardinals are a really good first inning scoring team. Obviously, Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado being the 2 culprits. But on the road, their number drops from 41% to 27%. So that's a little less than average. Cincinnati's about an average team at home. Goldie against Mike Minor scares me. Goldie's a righty, Minor's the lefty. Like, I could just see him parking one with 2 outs in the top of the first, screwing this thing over. But when Minor faced the Cardinals back in July, he got the first 2 outs, and then he walked Goldschmidt, got Arenado, and got out of the inning. So maybe that's the strategy tonight for Mike Minor. Don't let Paul Goldschmidt beat you. And on the other side, I feel good about Quintana getting through the bottom of the first against the Reds. And at plus 115, I'll take my chances that Goldschmidt doesn't burn us here. And we'll go Reds, Cardinals, nerfy. I'm also betting a money line today. And I'll be honest, I haven't bet a lot of these this year, but I think I'm in full send mode on fading the Orioles down the stretch. I just feel like the peak has occurred. And I feel like if we get a favorable pitching matchup in any game where the Orioles have to go on the road, where they're an under 500 team this year, despite the fact that they're over 500 overall, I think I'm going to fade the Orioles at every turn. So Guardians money line tonight. How about Cleveland? They were 14-1 to win the AL Central like 2.5 months ago. Now they're odds on. I think they're going to win the AL Central, barring some kind of collapse here. And I really like Tristan McKenzie's having a really nice season. Career low 3.1 ERA. Jordan Lyles on the other side is just a gas can on the road. His ERA jumps from 2.94 at home, 5.85 ERA on the road this year for Lyles. So I'll take a chance. I'll swallow 64 cents at Westgate. I'll bet the Guardians on the money line. I don't love juicing these money lines because anything can happen at the end of a game, but I feel like it's time to sell on the Orioles. I just feel like that time has come.
Yeah, I'll give you two more plays here. One is the Braves. Won't take them on the money line. Jared, minus 320.
Yeah,
the Braves
don't bet
are
that
tonight
Don't
against
bet
the
that.
Rockies. However, because of the trend you see sometimes, I'm willing to roll with less juice on the fact that the Braves will win by 2 runs as opposed to just winning by 1 run on the money line play. So I'll take the Braves minus 1.5 on the run line here. Kyle Wright gets a start tonight against Ryan Feltner. This feels like a must-win spot for the Braves. They lost 3 in a row. They got to stop the bleeding. They're playing a weaker opponent. The Braves have been fantastic this year against teams under 500, and they should bounce back tonight at home. Weather not being a factor tonight in Atlanta, let's hope they don't get a delayed start or anything like that. Max Fried loses last night. So, it's not pressure time for the Braves, but considering that the Mets lost to the Dodgers last night, the Braves wasted an opportunity to gain a game, they'll put a little extra pressure on themselves. And I think the bats show up and the Braves end up covering that 1.5. Also, and apologies to producer Justin, but I wanted to throw this out there because I didn't put it on our sheet. Drew Rasmussen of the Tampa Bay Rays going up against the Miami Marlins. His K prop at FanDuel, only 4.5. And get this, Jared, you ready? You ready for this? The juice on it? It's just minus 110. Rasmussen's gone over this number in 3 consecutive starts. And not only that this year, he has been dominant against teams when it comes to K rates of the high K rate teams. Struck out 9 Angels last time. He did it against Detroit. He did it against Cincinnati this year. He's gone over this number. Where are the Marlins? Bottom 5 in strikeout percentage in Major League Baseball. So this is a very nice setup here for Drew Rasmussen to go over this number again. He was actually my play of the day, I think it was last week when he had a start against the Angels that we hit on rather easily. So I won't throw the boss off and make this my play of the day without telling him ahead of time. But this feels like a very good play here as far as a K-prop is concerned. So that concludes our Bettor Up segment and Major League Baseball. We'll get to more baseball in plays of the day, as Jared said a moment ago. But let's shift gears here and go to the NFL. Welcome in our guest for the show today, Andrew Cooper, the lead NFL analyst for Fantasy Alarm, as he joins us here on Let's Bet It this morning as we get set to talk some NFL futures and props. Andrew, welcome back. Good morning and great to talk to you. Oh, boy. I see your lips moving, but I can't make out the words. I'm deaf.
I don't know if that's on our end.
Fix there in a second. There you go.
Are we good now? Are we good?
Oh, you muted yourself.
Yeah. How we doing, boys? Good to see you. I mean, dude, I was listening to the show. My brain might have been wiped of NFL, dude. You guys got me fired up to bet some Nerfies here. I'm not even a big baseball guy, dude. So
you want to go Nerfy action with us today, Coop?
I'm getting nerfed out, dude. I didn't even know some of those guys.
Oh, man, I love that.
I don't even know these guys' names, but I'm going to bet it.
I mean, dude, you guys seem so confident. Yeah.
Well, listen, it's all an illusion here, you know. You got
you
want to play good, you hope you play good. You know, you want to bet good, you hope you bet good. So
I'm buying it, dude. It's like the Prestige, you guys. I stood up after. I'm like, yeah, let's go, dude.
Too kind.
All right. There you go. Let's get to some NFL props here for the season. So when you're looking at season-long props, Coop, what are you trying to figure out when you put together the bet on these props? What are you looking at?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, with the season-long props, I think I might have said on the show before, but I need to be, if I'm going to bet the over, I need to be so confident that I think that these guys can do it even missing a couple games, especially if you're going to go with like a running back. Because, you know, as we saw last year, there was 6 starting running backs that played every game. You know, Mike Davis was one of them. Technically, that counts. It's like you got to be so confident in the bet that it's going to hit because they want you to bet the over. Right. The vast majority of these end up being the under. They're playing to, you know, your hopes and dreams. Right. So for me, I need to look at it and be like, this is a smash. Now, when it comes to betting who's going to have the most passing yards or most rushing yards, that's a little bit of a different beast because you're throwing the injuries out the window. You're just taking the best possible guy because whoever's going to do it, you got to assume they're going to be healthy. So for this show, I think we're talking about who's going to get the most. This is my favorite topic because now we're just talking straight best player. We don't. If the guy gets hurt, you lose anyway. So who cares, right?
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
And for guys who don't want to get hurt at the quarterback position, who do you like for most passing yards?
I mean, I'll give you guys the guy that I think is the top guy, the obvious top guy, and then I'll give you my best value play. So I think the guy that everyone should probably have to be the top guy is Justin Herbert, right? All the other top dogs have dings on them, right? Patrick Mahomes lost some of his targets. Tom Brady is doing, he's on vacation and stuff, and Chris Godwin's, banged up. Russell Gage is banged up. Julio Jones kind of
and he lost 2 offensive linemen.
Lost 2 offensive linemen. On the other hand, Justin Herbert seems to be getting new and improved offensive linemen every year. Rashawn Slater coming in, like everything's looking pretty good here. He's got Keenan Allen, he's got Mike Williams. They bring in Gerald Everett. He already has Austin Eckler. And the beautiful thing for a guy like this is that Austin Eckler's never had 1,000 yards rushing. They don't care about that. They care about what's most efficient for the offense. So if you can get little dink and dunk passes that are essentially runs but count as passing yards, I'm all for it, right? I mean, so if you guys are on board with Justin Herbert, or is there somebody you like better?
I like Herbert. I think your Jameis Winston pick's fascinating. I think your Kirk Cousins pick is fascinating because I think it correlates to some of the other things that we're seeing in the market this year and some of the other buy low spots on 2 quarterbacks that narrative-wise, because listen, these markets are driven by narrative. The hold is high. One guy has a good camp and you'll see the odds shift. So that's where you want to be on the right side of it. And the narrative on Cousins and Winston are, mixed reviews, I would say. Maybe on the interception side, you might get a little more positive narrative on both, right? But on the touchdown side or on the yard side, the positive statistics for quarterbacks, I think those guys can be overlooked a little bit. Why did you pick one or the other? And is there one of those 2 that you like more?
So Kirk Cousins is a guy, he gets a bad rap, I think, a lot because of fantasy football. Like you look at Josh Allen going 1
He's
overall.
the most underrated quarterback in the league, Kirk Cousins.
I totally agree.
He's criminally
when
underrated.
you look at the per game stats, he actually threw for more yards than Josh Allen last year. He had a better interception touchdown interception ratio, was only slightly more touchdowns. So when you bring in a guy like Kevin O'Connell that wants to sling it, right? And Cousins has kind of been held back by this run first type situation for years here. Like there's a very real possibility that he comes out and crushes that number. And then for Jameis Winston, I like that pick as a long shot because we've seen it before. We've seen him lead the league in passing yards. He threw for over 5,000 yards 2019. He's got Michael Thomas. He's got Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave, the rookie. And again, just like Alvin Kamara, just like Austin Eckler, he's got Alvin Kamara as the supplement to the running game through passing. If he gets 800, 900 yards, those are all yards that go to Winston. So I think he's plus 2,600 right now.
The part of the story I didn't like is where you reference Jameis Winston throwing for 5,000 yards one year in a year where his defense allowed like 175 points a game and they were trailing nonstop. He's got a top defense in the league this year. He's not going to be behind a lot of games, and I don't know what the propensity for his interceptions that Dennis Allen is going to want to throw as much as he could or would normally have to do.
Well, that said, I mean, you got to look at it from both sides. They lost the anchor of their line, Teron Armstead. This is a guy that Pro Football Focus has ranked as a top 2 guy in the league before. Now he's on the Dolphins. So I don't know if they're going to be able to run that much, though I do get your concern. If they're winning, they're not going to be slinging around the way you need to. When Jameis was setting those records, he would go out and, throw for 50 yards, throw a pick 6, get the ball right back, and then throw for another 70 on the next drive. So that does help a little bit when you're just kind of, you're juicing the scores.
Get the ball back real quick. Yeah, it's a
pick 6, you get that ball right back. Yeah,
get it right back. Put it right back in his hands. Good job, Coach. Listen, I'm with you 100% on the Cousins thing. I'll throw one other name out there, and it's going to correlate to the most receiving yards. And it's hard for me to believe that Derek Carr is not going to be tipping the scales near 5,000 yards this year. Just another guy who's criminally underrated because fantasy football nerds have taken over everything, okay? And they believe that he's not that good of a quarterback and blah, 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 blah. He went over his passing yards prop last year by like 600 yards. And again, when it first opened up, they had him at like 4,100 yards, 4,200 yards. And last year he threw for 4,600. So this is a guy, I think, that, again, in this offense now, where there's not a running back that can be trusted all the time with Josh Jacobs, although they use him and they will use him, he's not a bell cow back that you're going to rely on like a Dalvin Cook or a Nick Chubb or whatever else. They're going to throw. That's what they got Devontae Adams in. They're going to throw. That's what they're going to do.
I mean, 100%. I'm fully on board with that. And I think now his line is up to like 4,400. So people are
That's
starting
nuts.
to respect that.
Is it really? His line is lower than Jameis Winston's? Wow.
Well, no, no, sorry. His line for yards, total yards on the season. Not plus. Yeah.
I was like, he's 4,000 to be the most passing yards. I was like, yeah, no, that's a better.
We would all be sitting on. I mean, we'd all be sitting on islands with little umbrellas in our drinks if that line was out there. But yeah. So, but that goes right into my wide receivers. If you want to hit on those now, because
let's do that over here.
Yeah, I love Kirk Cousins, so I have Justin Jefferson as the guy I think is most likely to do it. But you got to pay for it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, and that's an easy one because they bring in Kevin O'Connell. Everything we talked about with Cousins trickles down to Jefferson, right? But with Devontae Adams, man, I look at it like you said, Derek Carr being drastically overrated because he doesn't scramble enough for fantasy gamer.
Underrated.
Drastically underrated because he doesn't scramble enough for fantasy gamers. That's where we're at here. And when you look at Josh McDaniels coming in, some people say that he's run heavy, but the last time that he had a wide receiver of this caliber, of Devontae Adams caliber, it was Randy Moss. And he literally set the record for touchdown receptions in the season with 23, 1,500 receiving yards. And that was a season where they technically didn't need to throw a whole lot because they were steamrolling teams and they essentially went undefeated through the regular season, right? This team has a mediocre offensive line. The defense isn't that amazing. This could be a team where they're just absolutely slinging the ball. Devontae Adams is, to me, a value pick. He's plus 1,400. I mean, he's led the league.
Coop, let me add one more thing here. Why are people under this misperception that like Aaron Rodgers made Devontae Adams? Like Devontae Adams just happened to be paired with a great quarterback, but it's not like we're talking about Richard Janis, whatever his name is, that he was throwing to that put up 800 yards, or Marcus Valdez-Scantling. Like, this was a legitimate top flight wide receiver draft wise, and all of a sudden we're like, oh well, he's going to be nothing without Aaron Rodgers. Ridiculous.
This isn't James Jones out there catching 13 touchdowns wearing a sweatshirt during the game. Right. You know what I mean? A hooded sweatshirt under his jersey. So yeah,
I miss those days.
Yeah, I'm fully on board with that. And honestly, this might sound crazy. I know this is a betting show, but just a fantasy take. I actually moved Devontae Adams up in my dynasty rankings when I heard what he said when he made the decision. He came out and said, hey, no disrespect to Jordan Love, but I know Aaron Rodgers. I know what his plans are. He's probably got 1 or 2 years left. I want to leave a long-lasting legacy on this league. I want to put myself in a position to go out there and compete with the Jerry Rices and those type guys. And that's why he made the move to go play with his former quarterback from college and put himself in a situation to play for many years. When I hear a guy say that, I'm like, yeah, sign me up for that. The best wide receiver says he wants to play for another half decade. That sounds like a guy for me.
The one thing I'll say about the Raiders, and there's so many, I almost tweeted this out last night after they cut Leatherwood. There's so many things to like about this Raiders team, but none of it matters if that offensive line is in shambles. And I don't know what else is there. Like, I'm not like an expert on their offensive line depth, but I'd be concerned that there's some cracks in the foundation there up front, and that will derail all of this amazing goodwill that we're building up for the Vegas Raiders this year, because you're right. There are so many things to like with Carr and Adams and McDaniels and how that all fits together, but none of it matters if it's just a freight train straight to Derek Carr in the backfield every snap. So that's the one thing that I would push back on with the Raiders, but I certainly can't argue with any of the other handicaps here. All right, the rushing yards. Listen, of the three markets that we're talking about, passing, rushing, receiving, I think the rushing yards is the one that I would not be interested in just betting, just because of how running backs are used in football today, and the fluctuation and the injuries and the load management that goes into that position compared to other positions. But that being said, it's still a market that has, I would say a hair of value down the board if you could figure out one of these guys like Mitchell or Mixon that might overachieve. So why don't you start at the top, Coop, work your way down. You got 3 guys on this list that are absolutely phenomenal running backs in this league.
Yeah, and that you're right. The big deterrent is Jonathan Taylor, because not only did he get the crown last year, but he got it by a wide margin. He obliterated, right? Like he had like 1,800 or whatever. The next highest was Nick Chubb with 1,259. And you actually spoke to it, that this isn't your, when we all first started playing back in like the early 2000s or whatever it was, fantasy football. Back then, it was all bell cows. Nick Chubb was second in rushing yards last year. If you go back to like 2002, he wouldn't even have been top 12. That's how crazy it was back then in terms of the big dogs. So that's what you have to look at. You have to look for those guys that are going to get all the carries. That's why I do like Joe Mixon. I think that the Bengals could take a step forward this year, especially with the Browns not having a quarterback now and the Steelers not really having a quarterback now. And, the Ravens are always going to be the Ravens, but they're in a position to potentially win a good number of games. And Joe Mixon is the guy, right? Like in the Super Bowl, they tried to use Samaje Perine and they basically lost the game because of it. So they on 2 back-to-back plays, right?
One play, 2 plays, but one really one important play. That was a mistake.
Exactly. And Zach Taylor all offseason is probably sitting there in bed thinking to myself, I should have had Joe Mixon in there. So that's why I'm like that's
Wolverine
a guy for me.
Holding the picture. What's that meme when Wolverine's holding the picture, staring at Joe Mixon?
So I think that, a little bit of Wolverine meme. He's got that Wolverine meme in him, and he's got those snaps that I think Mixon at plus 1,600. That's the value you want. And then the long shot that I had.
Let me ask you a question on before you leave on Mixon, because if you have concerns about the offensive line protecting Joe Burrow, which I think are still fair questions, why would you believe that they can create holes for Joe Mixon?
So I'm more bullish. The thing is, I'm more bullish on that offensive line than most people. I think Jonah Williams as a first-round pick can come around. I like Ted Karras. I like
They
Alex
made
Cappa.
improvements there.
Yeah, La'el Collins.
That was a weakness last year. They didn't have a choice, Coop. They had to improve that unit. It was a huge detriment to their success.
La'el Collins, say what you will about the penalties and all that stuff, but he was graded as the number 3 run blocking tackle in the league last year. So for me, I'm more bullish than most on that. Again, though, that's why he's plus 1,600, right, Mark? Like, they're a problem. It is a little scary, but if it was all Quentin Nelson's across the board, then everyone would be plus 450 like Jonathan Taylor.
Well, that's where the value is in this number. If you're higher on the Bengals offensive line than most, that's where the hidden value is with this number, because Mixon on paper in a vacuum playing for a team with a great offensive line, probably much closer to Jonathan Taylor's odds in this market than where he's currently sitting.
For sure. And then the last one, if we have time, is Elijah Mitchell is the guy I like as my deep dart throw. And, that's kind of twofold. One is that they got the best offensive tackle in the league. Trent Williams last year put together a season where if he didn't win Offensive Player of the Year with that performance, I don't know if a lineman ever is going to. And they really need to create a separate award for linemen, right? Like, we're telling half the Pop Warner kids out there play line, more than half. And what we're telling them, they can't be the best player in the league or even the best offensive player. Trent Williams was amazing.
I'm with you. I love that take. That's a great take, Coop.
Create an award. You know what I mean? Call it the Anthony Munoz Award or something like that. But you got to get something out there. and when you look at Elijah Mitchell last year, he only played 11 games. But if you take those numbers and average, and extrapolate them out, we're talking 1,500 rushing yards. He would have been second in the league. I know the injuries are a problem, and Trey Lance could be a drain on that rushing game. But just plus 2,000, $100 to win $2,000 if he just stays healthy and they keep running the ball behind arguably the best offensive line or one of the best. It's worth a sprinkle, right?
Yeah, I agree. Niners are going to be a good team this year too, so can't argue with that.
They should be, and they certainly have the offensive line. That's for darn sure.
They should have the lead in a lot of games. Game script should give you a chance for Mitchell to get a bunch of carries.
Running the luxury of the winning team.
Yeah, and does Jimmy G, Trey Lance have any fluctuation there for you? Does it matter which guy's under center? You would prefer probably Lance, right?
Well, it's kind of a double-edged sword where those RPOs create monster goals and monster runs, but at the same time, Trey Lance is going to be taking it himself. You look at the Ravens. 2019 set the record for most rushing yards of any team ever, beating out the 1978 Patriots or something ridiculous. But because of Lamar Jackson running for so many yards, there wasn't really a a guy that jumped out off the page as like the guy, So, it could be, Jimmy G. Jimmy G's probably better for Elijah Mitchell for fantasy, but for just this rushing prop, that RPO is super tantalizing. With Trey Lance.
He is Andrew Cooper, senior NFL writer, analyst for Fantasy Alarm. Appreciate the time and the insight, brother. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Great job,
Always
pal.
a pleasure, guys. Thank you.
All right, again, Andrew Cooper. Check him out at Koopa Fiasco on Twitter. COOPA Fiasco on the Twitters. All right, before we depart from football, get to our plays of the day, Jared. A quick note, not on college football, since I won't be on the show the rest of the week here. I have 2 plays up for Thursday and Friday up on the Pickswise.com website. I'm going with West Virginia in the backyard brawl, getting 7.5 here.
Love it.
This is also dubbed as the former USC quarterback bowl, as JT Daniels now starts for the Mountaineers and Keaton Slovis now starts for the Pitt Panthers. And so the big thing here is that Graham Harrell, who is the offensive coordinator for West Virginia, was actually with JT Daniels at Pitt. West Virginia may have the best offensive line of any team in the Big 12 this year. We're going to find out, but they're going to be tested in week 1 against the Pitt defense that was second in America in sacks per game last year, averaging just under 4 sacks per game. If they can keep Daniels clean, if they can make sure that he is protected, this is a transitional offense right now with West Virginia, going from a rushing first offense to a pass first offense. But this is more about as well, even though Pitt returned 7 offensive starters and their entire offensive line, they lost some pretty key pieces from that ACC championship team a year ago, including obviously Kenny Pickett, who's now in the NFL, and Jordan Addison, who transferred to, coincidentally, USC. So with that all said here, I just feel like this is too many points for a Pitt offense that is in a state of transition as well. And this is going to be a very defensive battle. It's West Virginia plus the 7.5 here because they are going to be able to do more this year offensively than their team did last year. These are 2 pretty good defenses. We'll see how the game shakes out. But I like a little small play on the under as well. But give me West Virginia plus 7.5. And then on Friday, Illinois travels to Bloomington to take on the Hoosiers in Indiana. I have a hard time believing how or why a team in Indiana that won exactly 0 Big Ten games last year, finished the season 2-10, is laying points to an Illinois team that, 1, is better, 2, has a game under their belt with a free sample set of what we've seen them do, and 3, is a much better defensive team than Indiana. That said, it does feel a little bit trappy, the spread, but I'm not going to deny taking Illinois here as a dog. It's almost too easy in a certain sense. Brett Bielema has figured out what to do with Illinois. Let's run the hell out of the football and play a ton of defense. He's going to grind tempos down nonstop. That said, they have a new quarterback in Tommy DeVito. Tommy DeVito, how you doing? He actually played really well last week. 27-37, not a lot of yards. He didn't even get to 200 yards, but still, they found, I think, a quarterback that is at least going to be efficient enough not to make mistakes and not put them in negative situations. So their offense is going to be a whole lot better. Now, for Indiana, this is a team, again, last year that was bad on defense. Coach Tom Allen is not yet even named the starter. Connor Bazelak and, oh, God, why am I drawing a blank on the other guy? Give me a second here.
Wait, they haven't named Bazelak the starter yet?
No. He has said that we know the starter.
What?
You just don't know the starter. They're not going to tell anybody who the starter is until kickoff.
Jack Tuttle's the other guy.
Jack Tuttle, right.
I'll be honest. So we bet under 4.5 wins on Indiana last week. We gave it out, I forget when, one of the days last week. And Bazelak, to me, like, they brought him in from Missouri to be the guy.
Yep. And
he's not the guy. That's big problems for Indiana. Indiana's full sell. Full sell if he doesn't win that job.
I don't know why coaches do this stuff. They act like they have government secrets that you need a top secret clearance to go when it comes to telling things about injuries and players and everything. Like it's literally ridiculous. You ever talk to a baseball manager? Yeah, he's probably out the next 2 to 3 days. His knee really hurts. We're going to ice it up. We'll see what happens tomorrow. More of an update there. Everyone's like, great. Football coaches are like, I can't give you that information.
Some of them are better than others. I mean, I think the one thing I've learned over the years doing this, there are certain coaches that are good at giving you information, and there are others that aren't. I think you can, in the NFL, you can probably name the one that isn't off the top of your head. You know exactly who he is. But I have no idea why Indiana is favored in this game based off of personnel, because they're replacing both of their offensive and defensive coordinators, and their defense is switching schemes. And they don't have, like, it'd be one thing if you were switching schemes and you had like 4 or 5-star guys like Penn State does with Manny Diaz all over the field, and like at least some of the talent can make up for the terrible scheme and the transition.
Right.
Indiana doesn't have that. I don't know how Indiana moves the ball in this game, and I'm worried about their defense. I love the Illinois pick. I think they went outright. I'd play the money line.
Again, I'm with you. And it's one of those things where I don't know that it matters who starts at quarterback in this game. Honestly, I don't. And let's not forget, again, what Bielema is going to do that's going to grind down the pace of this game, which is also why I like the under. Set at 46.5. I bet, listen, my best bet of the week last week was the Wyoming-Illinois under, and flukily it tied.
Yeah.
I kind of did get screwed. Right handicap, wrong result, but we pushed on it, not a loss. But I expect it to be the same kind of pace here. I don't know that.
That'll be the highest score that Illinois has all year. They won't score 38 points again the rest of the
No, I was going to say that was – I kept saying I did not see them scoring 38. 28, yes.
No.
And I think they'll get to the mid to high 20s against Indiana, maybe even 30. But I don't think they get to 38, and I'm not sure.
I think the under's another good bet this week too. I'd go back to the well on the under. I think you were on the right side last week. You just had one of those tough fourth quarters where Wyoming probably just quit. Wyoming might be the worst team in FBS, but besides Hawaii, by the way. BTW.
Yeah, but I don't know who plays less defense, Wyoming or Hawaii, but that's a different conversation for a different day. All right, so those are my picks again. We'll have 3 more coming up on the site today, and I'll give you the games that I'm doing ahead of time. It's Arkansas, Cincinnati, Georgia, Oregon, and Florida, Utah. So those will be up on the Pickswise.com website later today, including one of those 3 games being my best bet of the week. So stay tuned to Pickswise.com for more of the college football analysis. All right, Jared, before we get to our best bets play of the day, let's get to that website and tell us what 3-star plays are up there right now.
Yeah, I'm going to bet. So I haven't done a ton of EPL. I'm giving a pick out once a week, basically just for prosperity so I can keep my foot in the market. But there is some EPL on the site today. Tottenham-West Ham, really good match, rivalry match there. And there's some other really good matches today, too. I know Man City plays a little bit later as well. So if you're into the kick picks, I might bet something. I don't know. Check my spreadsheet. I'm not really going too hard on soccer picks this year. I'm just so damn busy with football. I don't really have a ton of time to dive in. There's also a baseball pick on the site, and it agrees with your Braves take. So while Coop was on, I looked this up. Favorites of minus 300 or higher this year in Major League Baseball. Again, these are the closing lines according to one of the databases I use. 26-13 on the season, which sounds good, but it's down 15.5% ROI. Even the run lines are down too, though. 21-18 on the year. So again, not like a huge, down year for those big, juicy baseball favorite run lines, but not something that's been a profitable trend. But the Braves against the Rockies today, you would think coming off a loss, a decent spot. So Brian Prouty likes your spot there. Rocks Braves. So some interesting baseball and soccer on the site this afternoon.
All right, Jared, let's get to our plays of the day. You lead us off there, sir.
Yeah, let's go Houston, Texas Nerfy here. This is the one Nerfy I didn't give you guys during the Nerfy-Yerfy segment. And again, I have 3 Nerfies on my card today. Yesterday, I had 3 Nerfies on my card. We went 2-1, and the one loss was the play of the day. So bet the same amount on all of these. But we got to give a play of the day, contractually obligated. So here you go. Christian Javier, Martin Perez, 36-8 to the Nerfy this year. How about Martin Perez, 21-3, 11-1 at home? I like the fact that this is a day game, afternoon start time in Texas. I like the fact that Houston's scoring rate, which is tremendous at home, 41%, drops to 28% on the road. And the Rangers have been a below average offense for pretty much the entire season. So I'm only laying 25 cents for this Nerfy over at the South Point. You might be able to find some better odds somewhere, but I feel like minus 125 is a fair price for the Battle of Texas. Astros, Rangers, Nerfy this afternoon.
I will also go to a nerfy. Look at Atlanta and Colorado. Braves and Rockies, minus 104. Very good price here. For Kyle Wright, who gets the ball for the Braves, 19-5 to the nerfy this year, 13-1 at home. Ryan Feltner takes the ball for Colorado, 8-4 overall to the nerfy, and much better on the road, obviously, away from Coors Field. Offensively, the Braves bottom third in the league in first inning run scored percentage, and clearly, Rockies nowhere near as good at scoring first inning runs on the road as they are at home. Braves in a must-win bounce-back spot. I will look to this game here in nerfy. Braves and Rockies, no runs in the first inning. So that will do it for us today on Let's Bet It. Again, download the Pickswise app on the Apple Store and Google Play. For Jared Smith, I'm Mark Zinno. Make sure you guys continue to stay locked into Pickswise.com for all your betting information. Have a great day. Go get it.